Hi all, in this short video I'm going to go over how to make a very simple program in Java and how to use the for loop. Alright, this is the type of things that you're going to need to know on the test. So, make a new class. We'll call the class example. We'll call it whatever we want, but we're going to call it example. Okay? Now when you open it up, right, you know about comments and single line comments. And this is what? This is an instance variable. This is a variable of the program or the class. This is a variable that's used by all the methods in the class. All right? Here's another comment. We'll remove it. There's a special method called a constructor. Every class should have a constructor. What a constructor does is it sets the instance variables to starting values. In this case, it's setting x to 0. But in the example that we've been looking at, we might define a double called balance as 10,000. Okay? And you can have as many variables as you want, instance variables up here. Oops. Sorry, that was my bad. That we're just defining it here. Here in the constructor, we're saying balance equals 10,000. Right? You declare variables up here. You initialize them to the starting values in the constructor. The constructor always has the same name as the class, right? And just think of what the word constructor means. It means builder. So this is where you build the starting state of your class by giving the instance variables starting values. All right? Cool. There's really very little to this so far. All right. Now we have a typical method, and this one returns an integer value. All right, there are two types of variables that we've covered: integers for whole numbers, doubles for numbers that have decimal points. So in this, we're going to write a little method called sum of integers. And this should be very familiar to you because we covered this before. This method will sum up all the integers between one value and another value. So we'll do int start, comma, int end, right? Now the for loop. For parentheses. What goes inside the parentheses? The three things. The starting value of your loop variable. First, you declare your loop variable, which is almost always an int, and we'll just call it L, right? And we're going to start it at 0. You start it whatever you want. Then sorry, we're not going to start it at 0. We're going to start it at start because we're going to pass into this where we want to start. Then, semicolon, then you do the stopping condition. So you want this loop to keep looping as long as start is less than or equal, if we want inclusive, we talked about this, end. And then how much we want L, which is our loop variable, to change each time the loop at the end of each iteration, each version, each time through the loop. So we do L++, which is the shortcut for L equals L plus 1. Right? Now inside braces, what are we going to do? We're going to keep a sum of all the integers inclusive between start and end, right? So we actually need another variable up here. So we'll come up here and we'll do private int sum, and we'll set sum equal to 0. In this program, we don't really need balance, but just leave it there. Okay, it doesn't do any harm to leave it there. Generally, you want to clean up your programs and remove stuff that's not needed, but in this case, we'll just leave it there. Okay, so what we want to say here is every time we get to this line, we want to say the new sum equals the old sum plus what? Plus L. Why L? Because let's say we ask it to give us the sum of all the integers between 3 and 7. So we're going to pass into the parameters. That's what these are, the parameters. We're going to pass in 3. 3 is going to come into start, and 7 is going to come into end. So L is going to take all the values between 3 and 7 one at a time, right? So L is first set equal to 3, and then it comes in and it does whatever is inside of the loop body in this block of code. So what does it do in here? It says sum, which starts out at 0, equals 0 plus L. Let's change that from, that looks too much like a 1. We'll just change that to num, right? Num, oops, I had a bug here. This is num is less than n, because start isn't changing. Num is what's changing. So, all right, it's easy to make errors like that. Sum equals sum plus num. All right, so sum starts out at 0, so 0, it's still 0. Sum is equal to, we do whatever's on the right side of the equal sign. Sum is equal to 0 plus 3, because num is first 3. So now sum becomes equal to 3, all right? The body of the loop ends, it comes back up here. It says, is num, the computer says to itself, is num less than or equal to end? If that's true, then it will continue doing the loop, right? So num is less than or equal to end. We said end is 7 in this case. Num is 3, actually 4, because at the end of the loop, this happens, not mum, num, plus plus. At the end of the loop, num is increased by 1. So num is 4 at this point. When we come back after the first time through the loop, 4 is less than or equal to 7. So now we come into the loop, and we do this line again. So what is this? So sum is now 3, because that's what it was. That's what we set it to the first time we came to this line. Now, so we say the new value of sum is going to be equal to 3 plus num. Num this time is 4, so that's 7. So sum is now 7. Okay? And at the end of the loop, num is increased by 1, so now it's 5. So now we come back, and the computer comes back and does this check at the beginning of the loop and says, is num less than or equal to end? It is. So that's true. So as long as that's true, the loop is going to go another time, right? And so now we had sum was equal to 7 plus 5 is equal to 12, right? And num is set to 6 at the end of the loop. And we come back again. 6 is still less than 7. So we come back, we come into the loop again, and we add the 6 onto everything. Come back here, and then increase num to 7. 7 is less than or equal to 7. That's true. So we come down one more time, add the 7 to the previous sum, and then increment num again. The computer increments num again, and that makes num equal to 8. So we come back here. Is 8 less than or equal to 7? It isn't, so this is false. So that ends the loop, and it drops into whatever comes after the block of the for loop. And what we'll do here, since this method returns an integer, we are supposed to return an integer, what we'll do is return an integer, the integer sum. Okay, so let's compile that. I forgot a brace for the end of this method. Cool. That compiled. Now I know it compiled and everything was okay because it told me that right here, class compiled, no syntax errors, and because I got rid of the diagonal lines here, which means this program successfully compiled. So now I make a new one of these. Remember, this is the plan. Now we have to actually make one. And here we have one. And now we can call its method by right-clicking on it. So we can call this method. And maybe that's, some of you may not get that right, control clicking or right. But anyway, we call that method. And what did we say? Between 3 is our start value and 7 is our end value. Okay? And it returned 25. Cool. Now, let's just make a few changes in this so that maybe some things will be clearer. As we go through this, each time through the loop, let's tell Java to print out the variable num, right, which is, in our example, is first 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7, and the sum. So num plus, I'll put a space in here inside quotation marks, plus sum. All right, oops, let's make that print ln. The ln does a line return at the end of the line, so that's instead of having it all on one line. So again, we'll make a new one, right-click on it. We use our same examples as the parameter values, 3 and 7. Number 3 goes into start, 7 goes into end. And there you see that the first time through the body of the loop, we output 3, because that's what num is equal to, right? Num is set equal to start. And the sum, which is also 3. Second time through the loop, we output 4 because num has been increased by 1. And the sum, which is 3 and 4 and 7. The third time through the loop, we output 5, and the new sum, which is 12 and 6, and the new sum 18, and so on. Okay? So I think what may be confusing you is the for loop and this the fact that it has these 3 parts. They're a little confusing. There's a lot going on. So the first part, again, you define an integer variable and you give it a starting value. In this case, whatever's passed in through the parameter start. You set your stopping condition, which has to evaluate to either true or false. So you're going to be less than or greater than here. And as the operators between the two variables. So as long as number is less than or equal to end, as long as that's true, the loop will run again. And this says how much, after the loop runs, how much to change the variable that you defined over here. So you increase it by 1. Okay? So I hope this helps. If not, let me know what's still confusing to you, and I will go over that. Okay? Thanks. Bye.